This is Pixar's amazing Toy Story 4.
It's me and you, boy.
What? A controversial amazing instead of a terrible? Yeah, I'm a different man now. Totally. Even still, it's a controversial opinion, but I'm doubling down. Or at the very least, we can explore how and why, looking back, excuse the snort, 7 years later. Because by and large, most people think that this movie just shouldn't have been made. And I get it, we really did have one of cinema's best trilogies of all time, with a third act that really did act as a concise conclusion to the running themes throughout the series. We begin on a shot of clouds and we end on a shot of clouds. It doesn't get better than that, and I do agree. Toy Story 3 is clearly the most amazing Toy Story movie. So the big question on a lot of people's mind with Toy Story 4 is why? And I would argue by the end there is a decent answer, but to a lot of people, it's not really enough. But considering there's now Toy Story 5, which I've likely done a review of by the time this comes out, maybe we can look at this one a little more pleasantly? Or perhaps the very same statements I'm gonna say for this movie apply to Toy Story 5, but when I call that one terrible, it will really show how much of a hypocrite I am. I guess we'll see. So I guess it's time to sit back down with it and break down exactly what this movie had to offer. And to be honest, we start strong, with perhaps the most intensely cinematic sequence of the whole franchise to date. Right from the Luxo lamp transition, we're thrown into some of the most viscerally detailed photorealistic animation to come out of Pixar since the Earth sequences in WALL-E, I guess. It's the closest kind of wow factor there is. Just the shots of the rain hitting the pavement are incredible. There is a counter-argument to the super detailed animation being, what's the point of even animating if it looks so real? I'll get to that, we'll get to the photorealistic cat soon enough. But I'd argue that the intensity of this opening scene is aided by these incredible shots in a way that wouldn't be possible if you inserted the characters into some rainy footage. To me, that just feels like someone looking at a really detailed landscape painting and going, oh, you're gonna just take it a photo, you know? With other movies, yeah, sure, it would get exhaustive if there was just super realism everywhere. Kinda like the live-action Lion King reanimated. But here, the realistic environment only aids the magic of the whole toys coming to life thing. And I also just kind of love that the Toy Story movies are used as a kind of benchmark to check in on how advanced Pixar's advanced technologically. This is mostly with the elements surrounding the characters, but there's one character you can particularly see this step forward with as well.
Situation?
Lost toy, side yard.
Well, the situation is that Woody and Bo's relationship, whilst never directly addressed with that word, is really the centerpiece of this movie. More specifically, a character study of Woody through the lens of their bond, conflicting with his sense of loyalty and purpose as a toy. We'll get there, but having this flashback to re-establish that relationship makes a lot of sense. Especially since she wasn't even here in Toy Story 3. Yeah, she got one name drop in the third movie. Not that I really have a problem with that. I mean, after all, it was a particularly notable highlight of how unforgiving kids growing out of toys really is. But if there was a justification of a loose thread to pull for this series, it would be her sudden appearance after being such a big part of the first two movies. And she's not the only toy missing by the third movie who gets one more hurrah here, as RC's the toy stuck outside in the rain.
Hang on, RC!
I mean, considering he's electric, I'm afraid to say this might have been the incident that led to him breaking. God, that's tragic. But not overthinking that too much. It's nice to see this character again. I didn't realize I missed him, you know? This scene also adds to back up the fact that the events of the movies are just a window into a few of the many adventures the toys have had. The whole idea of Toy Story is that you don't know what they're getting up to when you're not watching them. So stuff like this is just happening all the time. But this particular incident does have significance.
We've had it since Molly was a baby.
I don't want it anymore.
As it marks the last time Woody and Bo saw each other.
What?
It's time for the next kid.
It canonizes the moment she left on screen, as well as placing it in the timeline of how long they've been apart by the time we get to the Bonnie era. One of the few missing details in the perfect trilogy. More importantly for the arc of this movie though, it also plants the seed that ultimately will come full circle by the end. You know, good narrative storytelling.
You know, kids lose their toys every day.
Setting up where we're heading, whilst also making it clear what stopped him this first time around.
Come inside. I can't find Woody.
And it is truly unbelievable the amount of face acting they're getting out of these animated characters. Every thought going through Woody and Bo's heads are so evident with such little dialogue. And with that central motif of Bo adjusting Woody's hat, embodying their bond in such a unique and we don't see them kiss on screen kind of way. It is weird though, you can have characters kiss, guys. I know one's made of porcelain and one's made of plastic, but still. Anyway, the scene ends with this slightly devastating shot.
There you are.
We then cut to 9 years later, officially signaling the break in timeline from this world and ours. To be fair, I don't think the movies ever strictly followed real world time or anything, but whereas Andy grew up almost concurrently with the first gen audience, Bonnie's timeline is being more spread out. You know, they've aged her up a little in 5, but still, the kid's been under 10 years old for 16 years now. I know, we're so old. But if you are going to tell more Toy Stories, you can't really blame them. Toy Story 3 very much gave us that growing up storyline. As we now jump through this montage, the iconic clouds, the "you've got a friend in me," and who is that?
You got a friend in me.
That is not Andy. That's a 2010s Pixar house-style render wearing an Andy skin suit. What was wrong with his design in Toy Story 3? That was a perfect middle ground of updating the look from the basic 1995 one, whilst still resembling the character. This? Whatever, I guess it's not that important. All I'm saying is that it just looks like a completely different character, alright? Baffling. I should be getting the feels seeing a young Andy again, but I just don't because I'm not seeing Andy here. Anyway, Skinwalker Andy grows up, does the handover to Bonnie, who, unlike Andy, has maintained the same face. And now here we are. Present day, and Woody is very much still the responsible sheriff we know him to be, attending to everyone as they navigate being put in the wardrobe.
Deep breath, Jesse, deep breath.
Looks like someone needs to be the protagonist in the next movie to resolve that trauma there. Although technically she did already get a short. There's a lot of Toy Stories, alright? And we practically covered them all. Almost. I haven't done 2 or 3. Why am I doing Toy Story 4 after Toy Story 1? What's wrong with me? The benefit of keeping it relatively soon after the last movie is that we can explore the teething issues of Andy's group of toys meshing with Bonnie's. Even though this movie came out 9 years later.
No, my guys are veterans. They'll hang in there.
Although, having watched all the specials and shorts across the 9 years between 3 and 4, it actually feels kind of strange to still be in the early days of Bonnie. I've already seen them being Bonnie's toys across those past 9 years. Even before we see Woody's place in the favorites hierarchy, we can already see the cracks of him going through the motions of his former role.
Thanks, Woody. I got it.
Yes, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yet, it's without any of the envy or selfishness that we saw in the first movie when Buzz initially deposed him. Because, you know, character growth has occurred. Be kind of weird if a character growth reset in order to tell a narrative again, huh? Am I getting ahead of myself? Hey, I probably liked Toy Story 5 knowing me, didn't I? And then we see the rest of the situation.
The sheriff. Sheriff Jesse.
The next hurdle of fans didn't like this. And considering how much emphasis Andy put on that final monologue to Bonnie about how special Woody was, and how Bonnie was still discontent after having all of those toys until she was given Woody, it's understandable from an audience perspective. But she is ultimately a 4 or 5-year-old child with a brain like a sieve. Woody was also more of a highlighted, wanted character in that movie, so narratively they kept writing him like that. And Bonnie's gonna grow up to be an iPad baby, so, you know, the writing is on the wall. Plus, it just makes sense that she'd gravitate towards the female version of Woody, given the choice. Not to mention, it is all in aid of taking Woody on a new character journey, whilst still thematically tying to the other movies. In Toy Story 3, we see Woody accept the anxieties about Andy growing up seen in 2, and now in Toy Story 4, we see him accept the insecurities he had in the very first movie of his kid not needing him anymore. Besides, what would be the point in just keeping Woody in the house as the favorite, as commanded by the grand elder who passed him down? Ultimately, Bonnie's not the same as Andy, and it's almost as if us as an audience are being taken on that journey at the same time as Woody. Anyway, I do enjoy Woody being awkward in the wardrobe with the rest of the forgotten toys.
Remember when she played house?
I liked House.
Even in the first movie, this wasn't really something that got explored. Those accumulated toys that just stay in the cupboard that exist in the liminality of still being amongst the toys, yet rarely used anymore. It certainly isn't a position we've seen Woody in before, and as ever, they've got all the very specific observational comedy in there.
You got your first dust bunny.
horrible.
Yeah, I guess the closest we have is Wheezy in Toy Story 2, but that guy was abandoned. And despite coming from a more selfless place here, Woody's determination to be there for his owner is simply consistent with the character we've known right back to 1995. And what I do love about this movie's story is how it explores what happens when someone with that mindset is faced with the fact that their help isn't needed anymore. Someone who's defined themselves around one set of values, only to be challenged to find more to themselves beyond that. That's this movie's story, and it starts right here, as it transpires that it is Bonnie's first day in kindergarten. Am I supposed to say kindergarten?
Can I bring a toy?
Boys don't go to school.
Again, a normal yet huge point in a kid's life that we haven't seen from the series before, other than cowboy camp mentioned. And this is where Woody's grip onto loyalty really showcases itself, as it's a statement of what kind of a good-hearted character he is, whilst at the same time, there is an air of desperation to it. It's almost like when in that same monologue to Bonnie, Andy spoke about his loyalty and how he'll never give up on you. And Woody took that into maybe an unhealthy extent.
Bonnie's not Andy.
No, of course, I get that.
But as there's inevitably some frustration about how Woody's being treated here, it's not hard to feel for Bonnie as she cries at the prospect of school. Like, I don't blame you, kid. School's horrible. Or it can be. God, I hated art class. And as Bonnie gears up to go to school, one thing that's easy to overlook here is the score from the last scene in Toy Story being repeated here. Just like Andy handing over his toys to go to college, Bonnie also finds herself at a key life transition here. So it almost seems fitting that the same suite of music comes back here. And not just in a, hey, do you recognize this from an earlier movie? Wow, point and recognize reference. As we get to the school, of course, Woody has jumped in her bag, and is in there as some sort of guardian angel role. It's definitely the biggest length we've seen a toy go to for their owner in the franchise so far. And as we get to the school itself, a particularly impressive feat is how Pixar are able to tap into this life moment that the bulk of us can't even really remember, and make us relate to it somehow. Even if we can't remember our own specific experience of it, we can recall the feeling of entering that first classroom full of strange kids. Well, I thought they were strange, they were all British. It's the sort of well-observed scene that I also love from the Inside Out movies. You know, I know I just pointed out the shallowness of referencing an older movie, but when it's a legitimate Easter egg, hey look! Easter egg! Boo is one of the other kids in the classroom. Cool. They even aged her up a little bit. Don't know how that timeline works, but don't worry about it. Kinda makes you think what the toys think of the monsters entering their rooms at night.
Today, we're going to make pencil holders.
It's also the contrast from the chaotic, playful character we've come to know her from the last movie, to now here, where she's just sat alone, completely silent. And with a little bit of hijinks, alas, Woody becomes partly responsible for Forky's existence. A moment that expands the idea of what a toy even is, and therefore what can and can't be brought to life. I mean, it kind of makes sense that it wouldn't be restricted exclusively to factory-ready toys. I never want the presumably magic of it explained, but it makes more sense that it's the toy's purpose that actually is the determining factor. It's an interesting spin out of a series that is consistently giving us new, interesting spins of toys in every media they bring out. As Woody returns with the new life he's played a part in creating, so I guess he's a dad now.
My beautiful baby boy.
The ensemble waiting for them at home has made me realize one thing.
Oh, she's already making friends.
The main ensemble is now really crowded. You've now got 2 bedrooms worth of toys as one group, Forky now thrown in there as well, and then we have all the fairground toys showing up later on as well. No wonder it was fairly easy to get archived lines from Don Rickles' voice thrown in there for Potato Head. Him and some other OGs have barely any lines at all. And this is after they threw away a bunch of old toys. Well, until Bo Peep came back.
Trash? No.
It's a difficult one, as I don't think they were necessarily needed for this story that the movie was telling. But now they have this strange sense of any movie could be the last one, where you also want to hear from each of them just in case. Kinda does feel like the ending of Toy Story 3 was meant to be an ending, so you didn't have to have an over-bloated ensemble to add on top of as well, huh? It is a hard thing to balance out, and I can see why this does annoy people. Doesn't make a movie terrible, but it is a criticism. This isn't a glowing, amazing movie. Particularly when the bulk of these characters are sidelined in the RV for most of the movie. Still doing damage control for Jessie specifically when it comes to the fifth one.
Forky is the most important toy to Bonnie right now.
For a franchise that makes billions in merchandise, it's surprising for it to point out that from a young child's perspective, what they value has no attachment to a toy's monetary value or origin. A spork they decorated in class could become this week's favorite toy. Why isn't there real-life made-to-model Forky merch? You know, like a functioning spork. Sounds easy, right? Particularly for someone as creative and chaotic as Bonnie. Whilst at the same time, Woody's new hyper-obsession over Forky's importance to Bonnie, whilst well-founded, only accentuates his desperation to still be useful.
So I guess I'll just babysit him till he's used to the room.
And perhaps the most bittersweet part about it all is when in the midst of his efforts to stop Forky throwing himself away, Bonnie pulls him in for a hug while she's asleep. It's a moment that really hits the mark of, that's all this guy wants. It's a proper, oh, bless him kind of moment. To be loved and valued has been Woody's bread and butter throughout this whole series, and when you think about it, it's probably not something he's consistently received since Andy was like 12. But now, for a brief moment anyway, he feels the embrace of a child one last time. I know we've still got a ways to go, but sadly, this is kind of Woody's farewell to Bonnie. Kinda adds some rewatch value when they get this one last moment together. Before the next morning, when Bonnie's dad steps on him that left us thinking, oh, that's the physics of Woody's face.
Hit the road.
Could be worse, he could be getting grind down by the nose.
Today I'm grinding his nose off.
Thank you, internet. Anyway, the subsequent sequence of Woody just repeatedly throwing Forky back out of the rubbish bin is just a lot of fun. And our opportunity to hear a new Randy Newman song has arrived.
Don't you want to see the sun go down each day?
Of course, there's a sense of irony considering what Woody ends up doing by the end. And it's also a clever idea with the real-world end of things, as something like Forky would seem to end up in the trash more easily. Certainly a good scapegoat for any parents trying to explain where stuff from the school make table went. It's not your fault if it's throwing itself into the bin. Anyway, this is when Buzz enters more of the picture. Yeah, remember him? And for this moment anyway, I like that we get a quiet friend-to-friend beat between them.
You weren't around when Andy was little. I don't remember it being this hard.
And sure, Woody's just been running around all day chasing Forky, but the exhaustion in his voice here really feels like it goes beyond that. His inner conflict has that degree of exhaustion, whilst also clinging on to that need to be useful by looking over Forky, to the extent that he refuses Buzz's offer to help. Though this does lead to Buzz's comic relief character arc, which is another point of contention around this film.
So your inner voice advises you.
It's clear what its intention is, in terms of trying to get comedy out of Buzz, a different way to the Space Ranger memory loss shenanigans of the previous movies. It just doesn't really work, does it? Because unfortunately, there's a movie called Toy Story 2 in which Buzz assumes Woody's role as a leader in his absence and makes it quite clear that Buzz is not an idiot. So to suddenly cut out the common sense his character has ever had since he became self-aware is a bit strange. Like, he is known to still make the odd, confused comment and take things quite literally, as he does here, but this does seem to be particularly silly by his standards, and kind of emblematic of Pixar never really knowing what to do with him half the time. In the first movie, he thinks he's a real thing. In the second movie, he meets his clone, who thinks he's the real thing. In the third movie, he turns Spanish, and thinks he's a different thing. And in this, he just goes off on one, doesn't he? There's not really an emotion or spark that causes Buzz to even be searching for an inner voice, which could have at least anchored some character work in there.
Well, we're not doing that.
Buzz has got to navigate a post-Andy life as well. Maybe that's caused this need for an inner voice. But no, he just starts pressing buttons.
It's a secret mission in a charted train. Let's go.
Sure, it's such a dumb move that Forky elects to jump out the window.
Glitter! Freedom!
And so, Bonnie never saw Woody again. From the human perspective, Woody fell out the window of the RV and nobody noticed. Uncle Andy's gonna keel over if he ever decides to visit again. And whenever Forky walks, he moves as if he would if a child was making him walk. It just makes the character even more funny. Both on the comedy front and the character work going on, this is a great scene, because it just becomes clearer that Woody is projecting his wants onto Forky.
You have to understand how lucky you are right now.
Despite the guy clearly not being interested at this point. And it's an interesting flip when you think of the first movie, who would have just let Forky bin himself immediately so he could take the limelight, right after killing Jesse, I guess. Alas, with similar lighting to when we first heard it, this play on a callback here.
Like it or not, you are a toy.
Another reference to an older movie, but it at least thematically makes sense. It's not just recreating the meme.
You are a toy!
The parallels of that original scene seem deliberate. Two toys, the once favorite and the new favorite, lost on the road just like the first time around. And then there's this slip.
You are going to be there for Andy when he
Who's Andy?
I actually really like this direction for Woody, where moving on with Bonnie hasn't been as simple as it seemed in the last movie. It's not just Bonnie not being interested in playing with him, he's also struggled to move on from those days with Andy, or whoever the imposter at the start of this movie was.
Running the room was my job.
And it's an opportune moment to have Forky recapped on the prior adventures. In a way, it's a little less over the top than the similar scene with Olaf's recap in Frozen 2.
So he thought Andy's room was a planet?
Man, now that I think about it, Toy Story 4 and 5 love talking about their older, better movies. But considering we haven't really seen this done in this series until now, the recap of the 3 movies feels a little more earned than some other examples. Probably.
Watch him grow up and become a full person.
As its function does go beyond pure fan service, as it is very much a part of Woody's arc here. It's here he first confronts how he feels his purpose is being fulfilled, and what could even be on the cards after that, before bringing it right back round to Forky.
I'm Bonnie's trash.
Yes, wait, what
Man,
exactly?
she must be feeling awful without me.
And so we reach the antique store. The vintage place, with the reveal of Bo's lamp fittingly featuring some beautiful lighting.
Bo?
From this nighttime sequence of Woody confronted with feeling lost, the light suddenly appearing on his face at the sight of the lamp, notably lighting up where his heart would be before the rest of him. Toy Story 4 has so much animation cinematic art to it. From the way the camera mimics how real-life camera mechanics work, to all sorts of photorealistic lighting, all working to accentuate the storyline, it is still a masterpiece of artwork, plugged onto an unfortunately slightly shaky 4th installment sequel script. Hey, if that's not a modern movie, I don't know what is. Anyway. Bo, 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 bo. Bo, 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 indeed. Hey Forky, what's your favorite anime? What an interesting niche pick, but sounds pretty good. It's here that we get this movie's taste of the signature Toy Story creepy factor. You know, that same area that the big baby and pretty much all of Sid's toys sit. The dark side of toys life.
To bother you, but
Why, you're not a bother at all.
In this case, we have those ventriloquist dolls. I love them. Another great idea that we haven't seen in this franchise yet. I think the vintage place is also a great setting for the movie's overall themes as well, considering how Woody's feeling in this one. And yes, it is delightfully creepy. The puppets, the old record playing, the image of him pushing the pram with the characters in.
My very good friend, Benson.
oh,
It is wonderfully unsettling.
I gotta say, you are in great condition.
well,
Oh, well, just wait until the 5th movie. I don't know how a toy's belly can extend, but it does. Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more amazing animated movies. We've also got Toy Story galore. We've got scene breakdowns. We've got a couple of amazings. We've reviewed Toy Story 5 by the time this comes out. There's spin-offs. There's cancellations. There's... Actually, I think that's it. So thank you for joining along if you made it this far. And now to the second half of Pixar's amazing Toy Story 4. It's nice to be controversial this way round. Yeah. With 3 more ventriloquist dolls surrounding the pram, it becomes clear that Gabby Gabby's intention is to take Woody's voice box. And whilst it all works out fine and she ultimately transpires to be a more sympathetic character, that doesn't make her any less of a sinister antagonist at this point. Like, her plot is initially to just cut Woody open and take his voice box like an organ, whether he likes it or not.
You have what I need inside there.
She may not be mega evil like Lotso, but she's still a creepy character for the most part, whilst having an entirely different backstory that makes her actions completely understandable. Though she does kind of have the same backstory as Stinky Pete, never picked on the shelf.
Stop him, please.
And this chase sequence is perhaps when things get particularly terrifying. The puppet's movements are clumsy, whilst at Terminator-like pace. Nightmare fuel. Anyway, at this point, Woody and Forky get separated, trapping our characters in this situation for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, here's a Buzz line I do actually have a lot of time for.
Woody was right. We all should have been safeguarding the utensil.
That is when Buzz's humor works, throwing in unnecessarily formal and technical language into standard dialogue. And so he's off.
What is with everyone jumping out the window?
You can tell this is a movie that came out after the Marvel hit. And all we have now is Buzz on his own inner voice arc.
Thanks, inner voice.
Me when I realize I've wasted another hour on my phone while lying on the couch.
Thanks, inner voice.
And after a brief fan-pleasing amount of Buzz using his falling with style abilities once again, this ultimately leads to him being zip-tied to a fairground game with Key and Peele. As you do.
Hey, up here, Astro Boy. You're wrong. Dead wrong.
Now getting into celebrity voice picks that kind of stand out. Surprising, because actually animated movies have been doing this for ages, and Toy Story started with known celebrities in the protagonist roles. Maybe I just actually recognized them out of Toy Story first, so I have a problem with it. Though the comedic duo are playing essentially themselves as a comedic duo. Back to Woody and one of the key moments of this movie, starting with an introduction to the lifestyle that Woody ultimately is destined for, in a similar fashion and point of the movie to how he was introduced to Bonnie's playtime in 3.
Oh, baby, it's a good day to play, huh?
This different way of life is crucially introduced to Woody first, before the big moment itself.
Cowboy, how are you today?
In a masterful piece of filmmaking where, despite both characters being unable to show any expression whatsoever, the emotions they're feeling in that moment are somehow self-evident. Through framing and music alone, we know exactly how these literally static, motionless characters are feeling. A swell of emotion and score that shows Toy Story 4 still has so much heart behind it.
Oh, I can't believe it's
A standout moment that acts to peg in at least one more nail of justifying this movie's existence. It's incredible work, and I wouldn't expect anything less from Pixar.
So which
one
kid
is
is
yours?
yours? None.
No one. Wait.
Reunion underway, we get caught up with Bo Peep and her new life.
You would not believe the things I've seen.
With a whole ensemble cast of her own. Oh boy.
Woody, this is Giggle McDimples.
How many are we at now? Editor, don't count that. Spare yourself. To be fair, they handle this character juggling a whole lot better than Ice Age 5, for example. Anyway, we have another callback line to signify a change in character psyche with...
Kids lose toys every day. Bonnie will get over it.
Even before we know the full backstory, you can tell from this line where she's now at. But after a bit of nostalgia baiting from Woody,
Mom would let her keep Bo on all night.
she agrees to help him. And already I'm looking forward to the later revelation when she finds out that all of this is in aid of a spork. Meanwhile, with Gabby, we continue what seems to be an overarching theme of being there for someone who doesn't really want you. As she speaks to Forky, Gabby obsessively maintains her condition and practices tea time.
I've been practicing.
It's another win for the rewatch value. Well, it's sort of a win. It's actually kind of sad knowing ultimately what happens.
When my voice box is fixed, I'll finally get my chance.
And this shot of Forky's pipe cleaner hand comforting Gabby is just so funny and wholesome. Anyway, it's Key and Peele time.
Bunny, what are you doing? I can't reach him.
Sorry, Ducky, I'm not a mind reader.
Yeah, you know, like, it's funny, but it definitely does feel like just a Key and Peele bit that's crashed into a Toy Story movie. Hey, I kind of like it. It's funny. It does its role. Maybe it ages better when you're a kid that doesn't recognize who they are. Kind of like me and Tom Hanks. I think we all have a favorite bit when it comes to these two, but don't worry, we'll get there.
Oh, to infinity and my foot! Boom!
They're not all winners, though. Meanwhile, the love story that refuses to use the word I continues.
And have all of this.
What you looking at, Sheriff?
I quite like that it's understated here though. After 2 movies where perhaps Bo lacked a few helpings of dimensionality and would just jump on Woody in the first 2 movies, it's nice to show their dynamic in a more emotional and sincere capacity. Both of them making big choices in this movie because of their bond, so it's good to see a love that adds some nuance to "we kissed behind the building blocks in the 90s. Speaking of callbacks to her more 2-dimensional past.
Buzz! My old moving buddy!
Love that they sort of retroactively friend zone the original line there. As for gags that make me wince a little bit,
Alright, let's go.
them singing this over the dialogue for the next minute's just a bit grating for me. Again, generally I don't mind these guys, but they are completely unnecessary to the story. In a movie where you're already struggling to give pre-existing characters screen time, I just don't know if you needed to throw these guys in. Hey, I hear they're in the 5th movie as well.
They're about to leave!
Speaking of which, this is where the rest of the gang find their purpose for the remainder of the movie. Stalling.
I'm not stalling anything.
Yes, you are.
I mean, narratively, it works. We need a time pressure to keep the momentum rumbling. It's just hard not to notice all these guys neatly fenced into one location when every character was juggled so well in Toy Story 3. But the counter to that would be how a lot of the original Toy Story just focused on Woody and Buzz, whilst the others all got packed up into the moving van. They've always been supplementary, secondary characters, at least in their origins.
The panic is attacking me! Hey, watch it!
So it can be done, I just guess it's weird to see Jessie grounded with the ensemble when she's generally played a bigger role. She does have the most to do out of the caravan squad, being the one to sabotage the van.
Daddy's gonna use some words. How about we go to the carnival?
And again, the 5th movie is literally focused on her, so maybe we can be more forgiving of the 4th movie once you look over the full quintet. And she's certainly not the emptiest adjective in the squad.
I'm sure Buzz and Woody are on their way back right now.
Cool, thanks for letting us know. Back to the plot, and the crew have snuck into the antique store where we get that shot.
Dragon roams.
Yes, we're off to that time where Pixar decided, we're just gonna throw a photorealistic cat in there. Essentially functioning the same way as Buster in the first movie as well, giving us a whole new thread to loop back onto, showing the developmental advancements of animating pets, even giving us better technology for a decapitated cuddly toy. It really is impressive, right down to the lighting on the cat's fur. And it's here that Woody's one-track mind puts a spanner in the works, as the sight of Bonnie makes him disregard Bo's plan entirely. His desperation to still be useful for Bonnie, clouding everything else.
Woody just sits in the closet with no playtime?
Yeah.
With lines like this reminding us what's underpinning his character arc here, with direct consequences as Bo loses her sheep.
You really want to help? Then stay out of my way.
Which brings us to the Key and Peele bit I really like, and so do you, probably, right?
You two come from.
This crosses over my sense of humor to a T, to the extent that I will actively forgive these characters being completely unnecessary for the overall plot. No notes, comedic writing, cinematography, timing, it's just perfect.
Well, we're not doing that.
On to another cool bit, it's time to enter the Lost Toys Club, starting with a familiar face.
Hi, Tinny.
This is Tinny from the original Pixar short, Tin Toy, which eventually snowballed into the first Toy Story ever being made, with a cool 31 years between that original short and his return here. And considering this franchise all ended up happening because of him, it's nice to bring him back. Now that we're in the second half of this movie, we're pinning all of these loose ends we didn't even know we'd opened up from the beginning of Toy Story. With the unimpressed look he gives Woody as well, I wouldn't be surprised if that was even a nod to the fact that Woody supplanted him as the main character during the drafting stages. And then there's Duke Kaboom.
Duke Kaboom, Canada's greatest stuntman. Huh. Yes. Huh?
Yet another new character we are now to introduce that makes you question why they threw the two cuddly guys in there. Voiced by, of course, Keanu Reeves. Perfect casting, perfect concept for a Toy Story character, and though it sounds like him, he's at least playing a character this time.
My kid
You have a kid?
with his backstory once again pulling on something very specific and personifying it in a hilarious way,
But when Rajan realized I couldn't jump as far as the toy in the commercial,
leading him to unironically have a better mini character arc than Buzz Lightyear does in this movie.
Can you do the jump?
yes, I Canada!
On to the shelf heist now, with a reprieve of wholesome Woody and Bo content. You know, the heartiest part of this movie so far.
This is the only part of the story I ever liked.
The thing really standing out being once again the use of lighting here, reflecting off of Bo's porcelain, which both looks amazing whilst communicating the emotion of this scene too. Another pin for an idea that justifies this movie. And all throughout, both the realism of the lighting and how it's used as part of the storytelling is just impeccable. Anyway, back to the jumping bike guy, and despite this resurfacing trauma,
Rajan. I'm sorry, Rajan.
the plan still initially pans out, giving Bo that hit of clarity of what all of this has been in aid of.
It's an actual fork?
It's just so seamless how we go between the emotional and comedic beats. Forky being like a real anime fan and constantly talking about his favorite. It's a balance that Pixar rarely misses on too, with, despite the scale we're working with here, an action-heavy sequence. Even if said action is an action figure fighting ventriloquist dummies, a voice box being partially torn out of Woody's back, a spork being tapped by a cat, and a porcelain three-headed sheep being chipped.
Wait, we don't have Forky!
Yet despite all of this, Forky still ends up back in the hands of the enemy. And where toys are concerned, they're back to square one with everyone battered and bruised. Yet, Woody still has that goal in mind.
Nobody is with you. It's over, okay?
Leading us to the line that really hits the crux of this movie.
Because it's all I have left to do!
Besides So Long Partner at the end of 3, potentially this is the saddest line we've ever heard Woody say. He's going through his tragic backstory now, in a sense. It's the moment he's confronted with how lost he's become, clinging onto Bonnie despite her not paying him attention anymore.
It's called loyalty, something a lost toy wouldn't understand.
As well as being the token Toy Story beat where Woody gets angry and says something insensitive. This is the line that further feeds the idea that he's clinging onto those last words he heard from Andy. We're at the full-out beat of the movie, our low point.
I'm not the one who's lost.
Which really does underline the theme of this movie, what it is to be lost on a philosophical level. Yet there is still something admirable that Woody doesn't give up here.
You did all you could. Time to go home.
Whilst Bo very much called him out on what this is all about, ultimately Forky's still in trouble.
I don't leave toys behind.
He really is a good soldier, but he's going to find himself paying for it, with proceedings starting off creepily,
I knew you'd be back.
but soon returning to what is the core of this franchise.
You've been there through all their ups and downs. Was it as wonderful as it sounds?
Though of course there's a degree of manipulation here, ultimately you understand Gabby's pleas here, as well as what Woody ends up deciding to do.
I'd give anything to be loved the way you have.
And it's a really strange feeling that I get from this scene, as Woody losing his voice box in many ways feels like a character death of sorts. We grew up with these iconic phrases like, "There's a snake in my boot" and "Someone's poisoned the water hole." Many of us probably have a Woody toy that says those phrases. So this scene where those phrases get cut out for good feels like a big moment in the franchise. Let alone that line from Gabby just before, framing the surrender of his voice box as Woody's first step to resigning his many years with a kid. Meanwhile, turns out Bonnie left her backpack, so we have the thread to pull the campervan crew directly to the epicenter of the action, where Bo has to reassess on the Woody situation.
Only cares about himself.
No! He's always trying to do right by his kid.
To which Gabby would agree. With Woody's surgery now complete, we're now into a very different tempo for the third act. And it's here where I was really won over with Toy Story 4, with all of the many nails coming in to cement and justify why this Toy Story had to be told.
Good luck, Gabby.
Thank you, my little utensil.
It's time for another Toy Story gut punch of a moment.
You can take it home if you want.
This is a scene so good that I've made a dedicated video on it, of course I have. Bringing us right back to the overriding theme of this movie, as Gabby too finds herself as unrequited as Woody with Bonnie. Except in Gabby's case, this is only confirmation of the neglect she's experienced her whole life. And as we know, there's one guy who never leaves a toy behind.
My time's over. Please go away.
With the character animation once again excelling. It's only when I focus in for details that I notice things like Woody removing his hat, preparing to be candid with Gabby.
A friend once told me there are plenty of kids out there.
And thank God that kid doesn't end up being Bonnie.
One of them is named Bonnie.
We're not doing that.
Because there are way too many characters to keep that on long term. But this touching little moment ends with a message applicable to the fear of rejection as a whole. A topic also covered in another Pixar movie, also with a scene breakdown we've done. They love rejection in Pixar.
If you sit on a shelf the rest of your life, you'll never find out.
Over to the RV, where things are starting to get a little wacky.
Take a right.
Thought it sounded funny.
Our next area of pushback on this movie, with apparently the toys maneuvering the van like this being just a hint too ridiculous. In the Talking Toy movie, where we've already seen the toys full-on drive a car completely unattended. Is it really the best criticism? This has always been Toy Story. Anyway, time to fulfill the superior character arc to Buzz's.
Crash 40 feet into that target.
With perhaps the more unbelievable element than the toys hijacking the van being that apparently nobody noticed the ensemble of toys abseiling from the Ferris wheel. Especially those on said Ferris wheel. All the same, this bit's still pretty crazy. It is pure chaos and I love it. We barely get anything from this unicorn all movie, but it's all worth it for his mini obsession to get Bonnie's dad arrested. One of the best jokes in this movie. We are seamlessly jumping between the two parties now, and in turn, the comedy and the profound. And then, it is time for Gabby's big moment.
I think she's lost.
And what a satisfying moment it is that Gabby finds a child she can very much relate to. Them finding each other in a timing that feels right rather than forced.
Will you be my friend? I'll help you.
It is a quintessentially Pixar moment that delivers exactly what you want from Toy Story. Another giant peg for justifying this movie's existence. Although the ventriloquist dolls don't get anything, do they? No, their final moment is this. What a shame! They're too creepy to be loved, is that what we're saying? Justice for the ventriloquist dolls. How awful of a reality for them. And just like that, we're back to the comedy.
Are we home?
Huh? Dad's totally going to jail.
Weirdly, beside the villains from Sid and Al, this is the most comedy we've seen directly with the usually more neutral human characters. Again, maybe that's what crosses a line for some people, being too silly with the human characters, but I don't know. I think it's funny.
You've got to be kidding me.
However, it's time for the final let's try and make everyone cry again scene.
I'm glad I got to see you again.
With part of that emotional resonance coming from the voice performances. I mean, it's Tom Hanks. The man has Oscars to spare. Yet as we know, not every A-list actor treats an animated movie with the grace of a performance we get here. And whilst it seems obvious breaking down Woody's arc here, on the first watch, it wasn't necessarily obvious how this was panning out. There are so many well thought out beats throughout this scene. The duality of Woody and Bo in the same physical position they were in at the start of the movie. And then there's the return to form for Buzz. No, they do not give him enough to do in this movie, but here, where it counts, that core friendship we've followed since 1995 does kick into gear.
She'll be okay. Bonnie will be okay.
They even make the inner voice work here, so fair play.
Listen to your inner voice.
Almost. Nonetheless, it is a strong understanding of these two characters to know that Woody needed Buzz's blessing and assurance to make this move. And once again, the level of subtlety in emotions that they get out of these characters is just god-tier animation. Woody and Bo looking into each other's eyes displays more convincing acting than a great deal of live-action actors. The level of expertise you need to have to capture facial expressions that fine, I can't even fathom. Woody's decision made up with that all-important blessing from Buzz, it's time for the goodbyes. And though not apparent at the time, the moment sets us up for Toy Story 5. In this movie, maybe Jessie 2 didn't quite get enough to do. Good job Toy Story is never ending, before finalizing it all with... And so our iconic duo part ways, or at least until the next movie, where presumably there's even less pigs to justify it, but there'll be a hearty moment in the middle that'll maybe justify its existence, but probably not as well, unless I'm a hypocrite, and actually I love that movie, despite it probably being soulless but heartful, that's my guess. A movie that retroactively makes the ending of the movie prior a little less impactful, that being Toy Story 5 impacting this ending, and this movie kind of impacting the Toy Story 3 ending. What an unfortunate trait of endgame Toy Story movies.
Woody's a lost toy? He's not lost. Not anymore.
With this final exchange just punctuating the completion of Woody's arc in this movie. That's not the final line though, of course. It's gotta be...
To infinity and beyond.
Had to be done. Plus this suitably nutty post-credits scene. Alright. Oh, and this one.
Trash?
No, toy.
Great, yet another cast member we're going to be left to deal with in the 5th one. They probably didn't intend to have another one to make more characters run with, but that's how it ended up, at the beginning and end of this film. And that was Pixar's amazing Toy Story 4. Demonstrably, it has a lot of issues, but the point at the center of it all is it still has so much heart to it in the middle. It's weird to say that it's the worst of the series, especially considering it's still, overall, a good movie in my estimation. Again, I've only got a binary system of terribles and amazings. This falls closer to amazing than it does terrible. From the technological advancements, the narrative intentions with its main character, the themings and developments it tells with that narrative that unfortunately ignores everything else around it. That's kind of the be-all end-all trait. I like that we zone in on Woody for this one, essentially being a character study of him, and not every movie's gonna be the seismic event kind of thing like Toy Story 3. The thing with a franchise called Toy Story is that each story can be a different shape. Sure, the overall story connects together, but each chapter can still shift perspective and doesn't have to be the same structure. And just because Disney's overall had a phase of no outright villains around this time, doesn't mean we need to penalize Gabby Gabby for being a sympathetic antagonist. Again, I think the only flaw I do agree with overall is the handling of Buzz in this movie. I applaud that they tried to give him something that wasn't him either confronting pre-self-aware versions of himself or losing his own self-awareness again. In the 5th movie, they go back to clones again. I like that even less. I just don't think what they came up with quite hit the mark or was consistent with his character. But with Woody and Bo, I think this movie is absolutely worthy of both of their characters, taking Woody's storyline in an interesting and daring direction, and I guess giving Bo an emotional arc in the first place. And whilst there are far too many characters going on in one movie, to the extent that a bunch of the OGs don't get the screen time they deserve, I do quite like a lot of the new additions. Forky is admittedly really funny. It has its issues, absolutely. But overall, I think this was yet again another solid day at the office for Pixar. Admittedly, I had more love for it at the time than maybe I do now, to the extent that I don't know how much is my own view of the movie or just the negative social media discord around it. But I think I would still rank it higher than a lot of recent-ish Pixar duds, because at its core, it still has so much of that emotional core that tries to make you cry. And if it can sweep you away with that kind of emotion, you cannot call a movie terrible. It certainly whisked me away the first time I watched it, and I swear it's gonna end up better than Toy Story 5. That movie looks like it expanded some of this movie's negative traits and just expanded it further. Self-referential, easy bait, soulless, safe drivel. God, it's gonna have a hearty scene that makes it debatable, doesn't it? Well, you already know, a review's already out, so go check that out if you haven't already. As all in all, I think this installment does have a worthy seat at the Toy Story table. It's certainly a whole lot better than Lightyear. Somehow, this wasn't the bottom of the barrel. For now, though, I'd best finally end it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell us your thoughts on Toy Story 4. 7 years later, do you still hate it as much as you did? What about in comparing it to Toy Story 5? I wonder if the internet's gonna do a kickflip regarding this movie or not. This has certainly always been my take. But for now, I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!